We are looking at Rise Again, a sci-fi novel by Jay Wilburn. We are in the middle of chapter 7. So let me get back down there. Um, Not too far into chapter 7, but I do kind of want to um, reread what I've written so far for that to kind of make sure I'm not repeating myself in dialogue and things of that nature. Okay. I helped them because of my dead mother. Can't think of any other reason I'd stick my neck out for three white folks running through that neighborhood. It'd probably be the state police who rang them up first, but it could well be one of the neighbors too. My mother, rest her soul, would not be proud of me if I let them run on through the night in obvious distress and danger. So, like the good Christian boy I'm not, I opened the front door of the safe house and hollered them over. The three of them, Patrick, Trey, Aveline, they told me their names after I closed the door, were not armed at all. That was my first sign I'd invited in trouble of a peculiar kind. Stonewall Fillmore, I said, what are you three doing out here at night? We always find ourselves in the worst places at night, Aveline, the woman said. I'm sure it is a fine neighborhood, if you are used to it. I don't have any problems with Africans. I just never met any where I'm from. Trey, the shorter guy with the shaggy beard, covered his face with one hand after she said that. You can't say shit like that, Aveline. She doesn't mean any offense, though, Patrick said, more to Trey than me. I was not in the mood or the place to educate a few out-of-touch white folks on how to get along with black folks, but I sure enough invited them in, didn't I? I blame my mother and the Christian values that got her and my father killed. It'd probably be the death of me, too, sooner rather than later. I just rolled my eyes at them. My mother would have been more disappointed at that than if I just let these three die in the street. Best not to say anything when you don't know what to say, I advised. Big Patrick said, we never have time to catch up on local customs before we have to move on and start all over again. Local customs. Like being in this neighborhood was visiting a foreign land for them. The more they talked, the worse it got. She had offered that she was sure it was a fine neighborhood. Fact was that it was a pit that I wasn't going to stay in a minute longer than I had to. That made it the perfect place for a safe house, because even if someone figured out something was up around here, let's say, not a soul would call the state. I wasn't going to tell little Miss I don't know any Africans that, though. I needed to get a feel for them because I could tell they were putting me in danger and maybe compromising the house from now on. I had no intention of coming there again after that night, but I needed to know in order to keep the rest of the organization safe. Where are you traveling from and to this time? I asked as casually as I could. Little Trey stepped forward and said, we travel between... That's as far as he got. Before Patrick put an arm. Again, I'm just rereading to kind of get a place for the chapter, but first draft blues, I guess. Patrick put an arm across Trey's chest and halted him from telling me more. That gesture told me a lot. When Patrick met my eyes, I could tell he had seen me notice, and he dropped his arm. That told me even more, and I saw he recognized that I read the details in everything. Him noticing that about me told me a lot about him. I started to worry that he might be with the state, but three white people running through the yard of a safe house, hoping the black freedom fighter inside would choose in an instant to invite them in, was far from likely. If the state got that smart, we were all done. Besides, if they knew about the house and knew I was in it, they would not have the patience for subterfuge. So, who were Patrick, Trey, and Aveline? Patrick might be ex-state, and if he could be trusted, that would be huge. Trust was risky, and ex-state running through a neighborhood lost was a scenario I couldn't draw lines between to make it work. Patrick decided to fill the silence first, and I saw he didn't like that. We travel a lot to stay away from trouble. You seem like a man who would understand that. Because I'm African? I asked in my best insulted voice. His eyes got wide and his guard came down. He stammered pretty good at that one. I was proud of myself for that. Tell me where you're going, I asked while I had them on their heels. Trey started to stammer too. He looked at Patrick as he did it. Aveline was the one to cut through the noise. We don't know. We need to stay safe for at least a couple days. After that, we can move on and never trouble you again. She looked to Trey after that. He looked down at his empty hands, back up at her, and then shrugged before he nodded. She rolled her eyes at that. So they had something in the works in the next couple days, or they just wanted to buy time for themselves. So you're going to be trouble for me in the meantime. She met my eyes, and I saw no fear in them. She wasn't exactly tough, and I could tell she was smart, but there was no aggression in her. She was bold from being totally unaware that she should consider being afraid. We won't try to be. We shouldn't be. No one here is looking for us, but we might have trouble explaining ourselves to anyone who looks too closely at us. Patrick frowned at her. He felt that was too much information, I bet, but she really wasn't telling me anything. Which direction do you need to get? I'm doing a bad job of repeating words, like to get. So I don't know if that's a brain skip of some kind on my part, or if I'm just writing fast and accidentally repeating myself. Which direction do you need to get where you're going in a couple days? I had no intention of taking them anywhere, but if they thought I might, they'd probably tell me more. Doesn't matter really, Trey said. We can go anywhere. If this place is supplied, we could stay here. I haven't extended an invitation to you, Trey. Would serve you to keep that in mind. He just told me they had nothing lined up. Okay, let's say revealed. He just revealed they had nothing lined up. They just wanted to squat for a couple days, either in the house or on the road. I had no intention for them in that moment. Why did you let us in? She asked. I chewed at my lip and didn't answer at first. I could feel Patrick studying me. Maybe I shouldn't have. What are you running from? She asked me. Now I was on my heels. Don't you worry about me. I wasn't worried, she said. I thought if we knew, we might be able to help or stay out of the way. Staying out of the way is usually helpful, I said. I'd advise you not to run through black neighborhoods at any time of the day or night if you're trying to go unnoticed. Trey asked, what caused this world? I wasn't on my heels at that question, but I was not expecting it. I hardly understood it. Maybe it was just one of those sayings like, what a world, or what happens is what happens. Never liked those sayings because they don't really mean anything. Patrick piped up again. We just really need to know how to navigate normal life here. If there's danger, we need to know what it is. Is whatever you're running and hiding from pose a threat to us? It needs to be does. Didn't intend to edit today, but I need to get caught up, so I'm not repeating myself in the chapter. Does whatever you're running and hiding from pose a threat to us? I saw a sign. We saw a sign earlier on the highway that said unrest will be arrested. I nodded. Those signs were everywhere. They were like stop signs or billboards for righteous burgers. I need to add something here. Or warnings about Canadians. Alright. There was one by the guardrail on the highway that backed up to this neighborhood. That's when we decided to leave the road and cut through here, Trey said. Where are you guys from? I asked now. Now I was purely curious. What do you do, or what did you do before you traveled from one place to another? Aveline spoke up again with no guard or filter, as seemed to be her way. I was a ward angel. Nurse, Trey said. I was a nurse, she corrected. All right. I was a PI. Okay. Patrick volunteered. Okay, hold on. Tech in a lab, Trey said. Something's tapping over there. I'm trying to figure out what I got off balance. If my camera falls over, that'll be a sign, I guess. What is your cause? Who are your people? I asked. They exchanged looks. I tried to read all their faces in case they failed to answer. There was definitely a cover-up in their expressions. I also read confusion. It was like when she called herself a ward angel instead of a nurse. It was like they didn't even understand what I was asking. Covering up the answer and not knowing. Covering up the answer and not knowing the answer couldn't both be true at once. We all have wars we're trying to win. Trey finally dared to say. We all have wars we're trying to win, Trey finally dared to say. Most of, hold on, I'm probably going to knock my whole works down trying to adjust here. Most of us have a lost cause we can't quite let go of. Looking back, that was the moment. I didn't decide right then to help them, and if things had stayed quiet, I would have dumped them off as quick as I could. My only real goal up to then was to confirm whether the safe house, I think I wrote it as 2 words before, so I may have to go back and fix that all through the story, but I can deal with that later. To confirm whether the safe house was compromised. I'd already decided it was. Then it was just a matter of getting rid of this trio. few shots popped off in the distance. A louder crash followed, but was still farther away than the roads that framed this neighborhood. I heard the noises, but by themselves they weren't unusual. Could have been local guys. Could have been local guys taking out a suspect without bothering for a trial. I was wrong, of course. Aveline asked, "Are you in danger because you're African or for another reason?" "Black," Trey said. Aveline, with no self-consciousness, simply corrected, "Because you're black." It was as if she had simply mispronounced my name. I shook my head. Being black is always trouble. More trouble. Quicker when you decide to fight back. Far as I can tell, that doesn't concern you three. Why are you here now? We're a little lost, Trey said. He flicked his eyes at Patrick. Seeing no signal there, he continued, "We will be gone in a couple days at the most. Maybe sooner. We will be gone in a couple days at the most, maybe sooner. Whether you help us or not, we'll be gone. I promise." Promises are for friends, I said. We're not anywhere close to that. You three can stay here for as long as you can stretch. There isn't much in the way of supplies. There's a little store up at the corner, but the more you go out, the more you will be noticed, exposed, and in danger. I'm not sure what the state has for you. I'm not sure what the state has for you. I'm not sure what the state has, let's say, on you. But once you're caught, don't waste your time trying to tell them anything on me. An impact vibrated the ground under the house. It was more felt than heard, like a big, thick piece of metal falling flat in someone's yard. Of course, I was wrong. Evelyn asked, "Is Stonewall really your name?" I laughed hard enough to rock me on my feet and cover most of the noise of a couple more gunshots. As I walked into the kitchen, they followed me a few steps and then stopped. Opening one of the lower cabinets, I said, "It's a shame you and I couldn't be friends, Aveline Miracle. I think in another world we might have gotten on fine. They traded looks at in that moment. I thought it was about a black guy hitting on a white woman. If they'd been armed, I'd probably not have tried it. Seeing that reaction, misreading it, I now realize I was quite proud of myself. With them a little flustered, I then pulled out the Stover 12 I had stashed under the sink. I let their eyes linger on the dark metal before I holstered it under my coat. And below my left shoulder. The gun's barrel was so long it poked me in the hip when I squatted like that. Lucky for me, I was showing off. So as I started to rise, lucky for me, I was showing off. So as I started to rise, I was still too low when the bullet punched through the corner of the window frame. It showered, let's say it splashed my face with splinters and pierced the freezer door. The door bounded open and a frosty bag of peas fell to the linoleum. I dropped down flat and crawled across the kitchen. More bullets ripped through the walls and shattered glass along the back of the house. I was sure these three had set me up until I looked up and saw them standing up straight, frozen in fear. Get down, you idiots. Patrick unlocked first, and his face contorted in embarrassment instead of fear. It was like he felt silly not coming up with the idea to get down first. He went to Aveline and pulled her down to the carpet with him. Let me make... no, we'll keep that a separate paragraph. Covered her with his body. Trey still looked around, all dumbfounded. I got to him and chopped the back of his knees with the edge of my hand. I got to him and chopped the back of his knees with the edge of my hand, bringing him down to the floor in an awkward tangle of limbs. By then, the shooting had stopped at the safe house, stopped at the rear of the safe house, and I heard bullets hitting houses farther along. Screams rose from the neighbors. A few returned fire for whatever that was worth. It wasn't me. They weren't specifically after me. They might have been trying to flush me out, so deciding to leave wasn't the best idea, but I had learned staying in place while they're taking shots at you in bunches was a terrible idea a lot of the time. My instincts said to go. I took them with me because Trey's comment about fighting wars for lost causes had not left my skull. As adrenaline pumped over and through the idea, giving it more weight and meaning than it really deserved. Come on, I said, as I kept crawling. We need to go. I did not care if they followed. I wasn't going to beg or ask twice. They got their shit together and crawled with me into the garage. I yanked a flashlight from the step and located my, alright, here we are, K-A-R-R, my Carrington V90. I yanked the flashlight from the step and located my Carrington, let's say, matte black Carrington V90 in its spot. Not a drop of oil. Not a drop of oil on the concrete under it. Wheels had fresh, good tread, and the engine had all the power it needed and more. There was plenty I could have taken from the house if I cared to spare the time. But this was kind of a hurry it up sort of situation, and I already had everything I needed to get by for days, even with my hangers on. If we had gotten any further that night, who knows how things might have been different. I dared to stand up and opened the driver's door. Get in, or I'm leaving you. They hustled around the car as full-on explosions sounded around the neighborhood. If I had thought the place was that kind of target, I would have guessed those were bombs dropped from Raptor bombers. As it was, I did not know what exploded, but I wasn't waiting for more. Open the garage door, Patrick, I ordered as I slid behind the wheel. If one of us was going to eat a bullet as soon as we breached, I'd rather it be the guy who trusted me the least. But anybody besides me, really. All right. But anybody besides me, really. Let's see here. It's going pretty well, I think. I just need to think about what's next. Patrick sort of jigged from side to side as I roared the Carrington's beautiful engine into life. Hurry it up before we poison ourselves. In here. I'm not sure what that triggered for them, but both Trey and Aveline exchanged a startled look. Maybe they knew so little about cars that they didn't understand carbon monoxide poisoning. Patrick finally tossed his hands and said, "Where's the button?" Button? Just pull the damn latch, man. I don't. Where? I looked on Trey where he'd slid right into the back seat next to Aveline. Go out there and help him before we die in here. Something else exploded and debris rained on the roof above us to punctuate my point. All right. Trey bailed out and ran beside Patrick. I expected him to get it, but then he went. Then no, I don't need to say went. But then he padded along the metal panels in the center of the door. I'm not sure what he thought he was doing. I almost sent Aveline next, just out of curiosity to see how familiar she was with garage doors compared to them. All right. I didn't have the luxury of time, though. I left the car running, but popped off the gear shift to take with me in case this was some sort of ploy to steal my car. In addition, I had a Abelec 450 rifle under the front bench seat. I took the firing key out of its stock I took the firing key out of its stock as I slid out of my seat. I didn't think they'd try for it, even if they knew it was there, but I liked them unarmed at the moment. If the release latch on the garage door had been a snake, it would have bitten Patrick's face. Would have bitten Patrick's face. I reached around him to snap the door open. The panels folded up clean, accordion style. Against the ceiling. The door opened on hell. Several houses burned. Gunshots tore through trees. Sending shreds of leaves falling to the ground. Smoke hung thick in in the air. I raced back to the car. I thought the two guys were shocked by the violence, but they stared up at the folded garage door instead. Patrick said they work electric with a button where I'm from. Trey said they use springs and roll up on tracks in my world. I remember thinking they talked like aliens, pretending to be human. Before I could say anything, Aveline shouted, "Get in." They did. Patrick got in the back next to her. As I reattached the gear shift, Trey stutter stepped and finally came around to get in on the passenger's side. Came around to get on the passenger side. I was backing out before he got his door closed. I roared backward into the street and left rubber as I put on speed. I roared backward into the street and left rubber as I put on speed, trying to get away from whatever this was. Trey kept looking around him in the seat and kept looking around him and pawing at the seat and door frame. The roof of the safe house had caught and was spreading fast. People ran in front of my grill and missed getting mowed down by inches. Some of them fell in bloody heaps a second later as stray bullets tore through them. As stray bullets tore through them. Okay. I watched through my windows, which magically didn't shatter as we left the neighborhood behind. The bullets were coming from another street. This was probably State. It might have been an engagement with a Canadian forward unit. I wasn't always this close to the border of the Ohio province, so my wars were usually domestic and guerrilla. I'm never going to spell that word right. All right. Guerrilla. Okay. We weren't even the target. We were the crossfire, tearing up a black neighborhood, as collateral damage. From an engagement was probably two birds with one stone for the state. At least it meant we weren't the target yet. So that may be how I got onto the highway unnoticed. Got on the highway going south. Going south unnoticed for the moment. Okay. Where Where are the seat belts? Trey asked. I don't know what you're talking about, I said. You don't have seat belts? If you need to make a stop for something, I'll gladly slow down enough to push you out the door, but I'm not waiting. He stared at me and then looked in the back seat. I glanced at him long enough to see the darkness in his eyes as he looked on Patrick in the back with Aveline. That wasn't hard to read. I swear to God, though, if those two white bread donkeys decided to get into it over her while I was trying to get away from flying bullets and stray firebombs, get into it. They decided to get into it over her while I was trying to get away from flying bullets and stray. Not get away. Let me say escape. Escape from flying bullets and stray firebombs. I would have pulled the stover. Would have pulled the stover, popped them one each, and shoved their dead asses out the doors. Aveline could have decided whether she wanted to stay or go at that point. Okay, Aveline could have decided whether to stay or go at that point. But he was still on that damn seat belt thing. You guys have heard of seat belts, right? Yes, she said. We have them. They save thousands of lives a year. Patrick said, explain the term. Leather strap to hold you in case of a collision. Their cloth where I come from, Trey said. Oh, we have harnesses in transports, Patrick said. All right. They hook from the frame of the car to the seat. Trey said, said to me as if I was still engaged in this ridiculous conversation. You don't have those? No, Trey. I have doors, wheels, an engine, and glass. You won't fall out of the car unless you keep talking until I push you. He kept talking. He kept talking. How many people do you know who've died in car accidents? Not nearly as many as from the state gunning them down. Do people live through car accidents here? I shook my head as I turned off the highway onto a by street. I shook my head as I turned off the highway onto a by street as soon as I could. All right. I don't know, Trey. I imagine it would not be great, but I don't have accidents, and no one keeps track of that kind of thing. Why would they? Crazy, he said as he settled into the seat, but grabbed the frame with a death grip, like he thought we might take to the air at any time. Is there a war going on? Evelyn asked. I just laughed. I thought she was telling a joke. Now, thinking back, I'm not so sure. Have you lost a lot of people? Trey asked. More than I can count. Definitely more than from car accidents. More than I can count. Definitely more than from car accidents. Definitely more than from car accidents. Do you have any family left? Evelyn asked. Too many from my family still believed that if you worked hard, followed the rules. Too many from my family still believed that if you worked hard, followed the rules, and kept quiet, you'd be fine. And that's why I lost count of how many died. It's maybe it'll be different once Canada overruns the state, but I doubt it. That war is just over oil, and they don't even act like our lives factor into their decisions. You saw what happened back there. I don't understand it, though. Evelyn said. Her tone was so hurt and sad that it almost moved me. I turned onto a country lane and threw dust into the night sky. Trey held the door and Dash tighter. Which side are you fighting on? Patrick asked. My own side, I said. Nobody gains anything from picking a side when the state is calling the shots. My grandfather fought in the Great War. Let's say great-grandfather. My great-grandfather, and that would not be capitalized because it's not in place of a name. Okay, I'm about done with this chapter, so we're going to wrap this up soon. My great-grandfather fought in the Great War, and my grandfather in the China conflict. No one else bothered to sign up after that. They just use us for fodder. What about World War II? Trey asked. The hell? Okay, hold on. In the Great War, over 100 years ago. Okay, does it have to be great-grandfather? Okay, what his father would be? It'd probably have to be great-great-grandfather. If we're talking, no, that would be. Say his grandfather was born in teens. Yeah, it has to be great-grandfather, because he'd have to be born at the beginning of the century. My great-grandfather fought in the Great War over 100 years ago. And my grandfather in the China conflict. Alright, that works. The hell... Okay. The hell are you talking about now? The Great War. He asked. Was that World War I? I wanted to hit him. He shook his head and said, "Sorry. I mean, was that He shook his head and said, "Sorry, I mean, was that in the 1900s?" I need to write this out the way he would say it. 1900s, say between like 1913 and 1918. I said it lasted until 19. Oh, come on, Jay. What are you doing here? Let's get a new paragraph going. I said it lasted until 1920, when the plague got too bad. It lasted until 1920, when the plague got too bad. Let's make it 1922. Lasted until 1922, when the plague got too bad to keep fighting. When was that China war? I took a deep breath and said, late 40s into the early 60s. Trey looked positively fascinated. Was there a civil war the century before? Of course there was, I said. My people, of course I was there, I said. Who won? I really did want to hit him. The state won. The Union the North. My people won for a short while, and then that was over. What years? He cut off as lights went on ahead of us. I slowed down, but only a little. And that's probably why we survived. The blast hit off center, but sent us spinning and then rolling off the road and through the trees down the slope. The Carrington came apart. I rolled free, and so did. I rolled free, and so did. I rolled free, and so did Trey and Avalon. I remember thinking I could not fathom why anyone would want to be strapped to the seat when something like that happened. Shouting, more lights, the distinct sound of rifles being keyed. It was chaos. Trey and Avalon struggled to get Patrick out. Okay, what would the... Alright, this is to be further down the road. Alright, let's see. 60. Looking at notes to figure out what's coming next. So it could be 2 months. Yeah, okay. Trey and Avalon struggled to get Patrick out of the wreckage. I helped them and then pulled them along without bothering to ask if we stayed put. We were dead. Part way through the trees. Partway through the trees, Trey says, "It's charged." The other two stopped as well. We need to go. I'm going even if you stop, I said. Keep going, Avalon told me. We'll lead them away. Sorry for the trouble. Sorry for the trouble. Wait, let's say thank you for your help. Sorry for the trouble. Thank you for your help. Sorry for the trouble. I ran. It wasn't a confirmation of their plan. I simply wasn't going to argue war or seatbelts with them any longer. To their credit, to their credit, they did lead the people. They did lead the state boys away from me, and I made it back to my cell a couple regions over. All right. I'm not sure what happened, but they never gave me up, so I assume they were killed. I accidentally gave them my real name that night, so if they had talked, I would have found out. Still wonder where the hell they came from and where they were going, whether they got there or not. Alright, that does that. Let's put down the next chapter heading, and then I'll be ready for tomorrow. After that, I'll put down my word counts. So the next chapter is post end 1-6. Oh, that's what this one was. Post end. Let me mark out all of this before I accidentally write the same chapter over again. Post end 171. Cold War shift 14. Alaska question mark 1. All right. All right. That's where we'll stop today. So word count is 15773. 15773. So I'm going to pop over to my NaNoWriMo page. I was at 2968, and I've already forgotten what my word count was. 15773. 15773. So let me get down here. 15773. Jay Wilburn with no memory. 15773. There we go. I am very happy. Is that right? All right. 15773. Okay. I think in my head I was thinking I was going to stop at 1500. Yeah, that is where I was going to stop. Okay, so I'm 773 ahead. Yeah, I'm really not good with word counts. This is not in my wheelhouse. All right, so I'm still on my 3-day streak. What does this mean? Reach the halfway mark. I'm not there. So I'll be tomorrow. I'll hit the 7-day streak and so forth. I've already passed 10K, and we'll be getting to 25K. So well on our way. I'm again trying to do. Thanks, Mia. I'm trying to do 2,500 a day, so I'll be done by the 20th for 50,000 words. I don't know if that finishes the novel, but that reaches my nano goal, and then I might continue the novel later on. Let's take a look at some of my friends who have given me permission to check out their nanos. So let's see where Armand Rosamilia is. Okay, I can't remember what his word count was yesterday, so he may not have written yet today. but he's at 14,580. He's writing The Devil's School, and so that's where he is right now. Very good job. Definitely well ahead of the 30-day pace. Let's see who else. So let's take a look at... I'm not sure if he has done anything yet. No, we won't look at his yet. Let's take a look at... Let's take a look at J.C. Walsh. All right, J.C. Walsh is at 4,101. So he is going to be doing some catching up, I think. No problem with that. Who else can we check out? I know John Quick is very determined and gets high word counts. So we are looking at 18,875 on Homecoming. So that's where he is. Very good job to him as well. Alrighty, let's see who else. I have a new buddy today who gave me permission to look at his work. Let's see what Alex from Iowa has done. He's fairly new. He has changed his goal, I think. Alright, so let's check him out. I'm not sure what he was writing for the other one. It was Iowa Creature Feature. I think maybe he might be doing some short stories. So his new goal is 8,000 words Snafu Holy War. So I'm thinking maybe he was Iowa Creature Feature may have been like a collection title, and he was going to write some short stories. So the fact that he has an 8,000 word goal and he's done 641 on it, I know he had a few thousand written for the previous one. So this is like a new goal, and he's kind of got a 2-day badge. So this is the second day he's worked on this particular story, or he switched stories. But the fact it's 8,000 words, I believe he may be writing short stories for NaNoWriMo. So let's go look at some other folks. That's interesting. I didn't even think that was happening with him. All right, we've looked at all of them. Let's check out Tim Meyer. Again, a great author, and he is tearing it up with Pteranodon Canyon, already at 21,225. He's almost at the halfway mark. He's covered the 25,000. He's covered 25K? Am I reading that wrong? That is odd. Maybe he had to adjust back. I don't know. That's weird. Okay. Let's see what else is going on. We looked at Tim. So moving on down, I am friends with Stephen Kazanewski, and he is a great author, and they are making progress as well. So he is at 16,116 words on Clickers Never Die. Now again, I think he was co-writing that book, but I may be incorrect on that. But 16,000 words is a great total right now. He is well ahead of even a 20-day schedule. All right, so there's one more author I wanted to look at, and I'm going to actually look at his work online as well, because he's been writing a good while, and he has a lot that we can look at. So Kodago is what he goes by here, but we'll actually look at his author name in most of the moment. He is writing Broken Vistas, and he is at 11,174, so well ahead of the 30-day pace, I believe. And he's updated. He updated at least on the 3rd day. So I don't know where he is today. Let's take a look at his profile online. So he is C.R. Langille or Langile. I haven't actually heard that pronounced out loud, so we talk a lot, but mostly online. I haven't read a ton of his work, but he has a number of these Tales From type books. It looks like most of them are novels, and then a couple of them are short story collections from when I was looking through earlier to see what I might highlight. So maybe that's like a theme that he does with some of his novels as well as his short story collections. Let's take a look here. This Dark Tyrant series appears to have 3 books and seems to combine magic and myth from a number of different traditions and faiths. So that looks like one that's pretty interesting to look at. I was also looking at Terrence and the Magic Sword of Courage. Looks like that came out in 2017, and it's a looks like a children's type book, maybe a chapter book that involves like a teddy bear that is trying to protect children, and apparently the bear is very afraid of almost everything, but still has to protect people. All right, he's in a number of anthologies. Interestingly, I'd forgotten he was in this one. This anthology, I actually was rejected from, so I submitted to that years ago and was rejected. But then the editor, who I'm a good friend with, who rejected my story, asked me if I would review the book. So not only did he reject me from the anthology, he handed me the anthology to review, and to top it off, it was really good. So I had to say nice things about it. I was trying to find that, and it's been so long ago. I don't even remember what year that came out, but I read every story in it and reviewed it, but I don't remember which one was Langill's. So I was trying to go back and find it to refresh my memory on that story, and I couldn't find it in my computer. I got it so long ago it probably wasn't even given to me as an ebook. I may have just gotten a Word file or a PDF or something. I don't even know what they sent me, but I could not find that thing to save my life. So I'm going to need to check that out, or ask him to remind me which story in there was his. That it's an older anthology, kind of an alternate history horror thing, and it's really good. My goal was 15,000, and I'm a good 700 over that. And it looks like most of my friends are doing well. Few people are a little bit behind, but that's a normal risk of NaNoWriMo. So hopefully they'll be encouraged to keep going, and hopefully anybody watching this either live or in the edited video later who's involved in NaNoWriMo will be encouraged as well.